Hello everyone, it's Nicky Backer D'Angelo here with another Let's Play Kerbal Space Program, and I've been getting deeper into it because the game is quite fun, and now that it is a game and it's in version 1.0, I'm finding myself very hard to put it down. It's not taking me away from my Star Citizen or my Elite Dangerous gameplay. What it's doing is taking me away from sleep, which is quite unusual because I love my sleep. All right, so we are going to be taking Bill or Bob or Jebediah. No, we're going to be taking Jebediah. What I was trying to do there is show my confusion. The last time I named the video, Bill goes to the moon, but it was actually Bob. So Bob is left up there, stranded on the moon. Well, not stranded. He can get back. But we brought him up there as a scientist to be able to get as much science as we can so we can unlock some more wonderful science research inside of the Research and Development Center. So let's take a look at what I'm building. I'm going to be taking a tourist around Minmus, and that's pretty much the deal that I had. So it was just to take a tourist to Minmus. But in this episode, Jebediah is going to decide that he wants to do a little bit more, and Bob is going to decide that he wants to come back from the moon. All right, so let's take a look at what happened in this episode. Here are the final touches I'm making on this design because I'm taking 2 people to the moon. I want to have a science junior on it, and I really don't want to sacrifice any of the I don't want to sacrifice anything on this mission, so it's going to be quite a big rocket. So I decided this one on the bottom was too big. Like, I would not be able to land because there's just no lander legs big enough for a Poodle engine right now. Although the Poodle engine is extremely efficient, I decided there was a better way to do this. So I have these parts from KW Rocketry mod, and I add them over here, and I'm just going to take a Terrier engine on this one. I'm going to throw the coupler back on there. Decoupler, coupler. Come on. Well, anyway, that's what's going to happen. And then I'm going to throw the lander legs on this instead. Now, I should have a lot better situation here at that point. Now, all of my items I'm taking back with me from Minmus are going to be up on top of the ship itself. So I have Kerbal Engineer running, so it can show me the Delta V stats and the weight and everything. I've got all my legs on this because it's tall, it's wide at the bottom. I'm putting extra legs on it just for balance because I know the legs are not long enough to hold it up, so they're just there to keep it from tipping over. It's going to be sitting on its engine almost definitely. And the Terrier engine with this much fuel is going to give us a lot of Delta V, a lot of efficiency. So we're going to pick our, there we go, our voltaic cells, or solar panels. Now, one thing to know is that these that I pick, they do not retract, and that's all right. I didn't want them to retract, but normally when you go up and you're going to be doing EVAs and stuff, if you're not very good at doing EVAs, you're not going to want to put the always out solar panels on there. Use those for your probes that you have to build in the early stages of the game, and use the ones that have the encasements for the ships where you're going to be doing a lot of EVA around, and that way when you're getting used to EVA you don't bump into one and break one. Now if you have an engineer with you and you break one, you could fix it at some point. I'm not sure if that happens until he gets some XP. So that's pretty much it. You've seen the design. Let's go to the launch. Let's speed up the launch and let's get this baby going. I'm going to speed up the launch here as everyone's seen a launch before. So let's just take a look at this. And even if in its 60 frame per second glory, it's still beautiful. So I've got a couple of mods on here. I have some mods that are going to help me take science. I have MechJeb on here because, like I said in the past, I know how to fly these. I never have a problem. You'll see me make my own computations and make my own my own maneuvering nodes. I just use MechJeb from time to time to give me Delta V stats like this. And when I need him to, which is Mechanical Jeb, I will use him to put me into a Well, to fire the engines, because really that's the tedious part. So I could create the maneuvering nodes, which are all me, right? So I'm not doing it on my own thing, but I will use it from time to time just to fire the engines, just to whatever we have to do for that one maneuvering node. All right, so Jebediah is flying today, and my cat is scratching my dresser. All right, so yeah, my cat likes to play around in the background. Her name is Sophia. She's kind of strange. Calico cats are always crazy. So the main mission here is just to get to Minmus. This gentleman over here is paying almost nothing to get this rocket, which cost a boatload, over to Minmus, so he can jump up and down and say, "I saw the giant creme de menthe, the giant pistachio ice cream that is our second moon." And really, this, outside of me totally blowing the orbital inclination, which you can start off with an orbital inclination if you time your launch correctly, that is essentially the same as Minmus, but I find that really does limit when you launch, right? Because you're not always going to match up with the orbital inclination of a Minmus. You'd have to wait hours or days for your space center to actually be in the right place at the right time. So what I do is I just launch, and then I set an orbital inclination burn afterwards. I do use MechJeb to match the plane of the target in this one, and essentially what you would do is you would line up the ascending and descending nodes to peer right through your orbit. You'd put a maneuvering node in line with those two, and then you just set the angle of inclination. There's guides on how to get to Minmus. There's guides on how to get to Moon or Duna or Eve. So all you have to do is look them up on Google. This game has been around for a long time, even though it is just came out. It's been in beta and alpha for quite a long time. So this is the key here. Now we have to find Minmus, and there she is, right out there, all the way out in the nether. So we find our node. We're going to now play with the orbital inclination. I just click on our buddy up there. Oh no, I'm showing you the way to do it, which is to line up the ascending and descending nodes, find where they pass, and then look straight down at them. And if you don't know the actual orbital inclination, just start pulling on the triangles and stuff. It's easier just to click on this and to go here and see what it does. And you say change it and create it, and it will do it. So it does exactly what you can do on your own, and it's not very difficult to change the inclination to match Minmus. It's actually pretty standard. All right, or pretty easy, I should say. All right, let's move on to the next step, because these can be boring if we watch all 2 hours of this mission. So just so you get an idea what is involved with this, we're going to speed the rest of this up 4 times and just talk about some things that people forget. As you can see, my solar panels are out, and early in the game, and I think it's something that they actually should fix, they don't give you the ability to make custom stagings or custom, I forget what they call them, but you could hit numbers 1 through 9 and have different actions. So I would call them action keys or action groups. And action groups are very important in the design of bigger spacecraft, especially spacecraft that are going to have multiple stages or multiple landers and capsules on it, because you may have RCS rockets on your lander, you may have RCS jets on your capsule, on your main service module. And action groups will let you set them up to turn them off and on according to which one's in operation at the time. You never want to hit that R key to start off your reaction control jets and then have them go off on both firing in opposite directions. That would just be a very bad thing. Setting action groups to turn off your main engine is also very important when you're doing something like docking. Right now you have to right click on it and say deactivate, and it's really a big thing. So I was pointing at the solar panels, and one thing that people forget a lot in this game is they take off and they go into space and they are up there for a while, and they've forgotten to unfurl their they're solar panels. Now, if you're an engineer, I believe you can make them come out. I don't think a standard Kerbal can, because I'm so OCD about always doing it that I have not forgotten in a while. It's probably something I should try and see if you have to be an engineer, if just anybody can do it. But action groups are going to be extremely important. And right now, you have staging. You could set things that happen with your staging, with stages. Like, there's a built-in abort action group that you could have the escape tower, a decoupler, and you could have parachutes all on an abort. And what you do is you hit abort, it decouples, fires the escape tower, and then fires the parachutes when you're clear of the vessel. That is built in, and if you click up to the upper left-hand corner of the altimeter at the very top, you will, or I'll call that the HUD at the very top, you'll see that there's an abort item that you can get. Now, escape towers also come in later on in the game, and then this, they're making the science tree, tech tree, very intriguing to go after, but there's a couple of things that just don't make sense to me, like not having a decoupler early in the game. And really what makes it not so important is that you do gain the technology to get a lot of those things very early, but you don't gain the technology to get something like action groups, custom action groups. And I think that's not a failure. I just think that's an oversight on their part. I think they're just trying to make it so you do have reasons to upgrade your facilities, and you have reasons to actually go out there and unlock the science tree. You could always just play in sandbox mode, but I think, although that's fun, that gets old a little bit quick. So there we are, sending Jebediah and our tourist on our way. And let's get back to Bob, who we left on the moon, and see what kind of dilemma he has, because Bob is not a pilot. Bob is a scientist, and Bob is sitting up there all by himself in this tiny little capsule, and he gets a little bit weird and decides that he's going to get out of the ship and get some science, and is automatically finding that there's not a lot of science to get. What he doesn't know is that we did send Valentina up to the moon when he was here. We didn't see that, and I could always put that up later on. She had quite an interesting trip to the moon, trying to land close to him. And the idea there was she was going to land close to him, and he was going to go jump into her ship, because I made one that looked kind of like this, and leave this here kind of as a probe unit, because there's all those probes on board. But in the grand scheme of things, Bob decided that he was going to not allow that to happen, and he was going to get off the moon as soon as possible. So he's planting his flag, and he's going to have a little bit of a ordeal in just a few minutes. Now, remember, you do get XP for planting flags, you get XP for orbits, you get XP for doing everything special, but I think you only get it the first time you do it in any one area. And here he is trying to use his jetpack, something that Jebediah is actually amazing at. But Bob over here is having his issues. He's not. He's got MechJeb on his back. Look at that. That's pretty cool. MechJeb is back now. So Bob does have issues trying to get into the ship, and never would you see Jebediah or Valentina flying around like this. But Bob decides that, all right, I'm going to get in this time. And he goes and plants himself on top on the parachute. That's not the way in, buddy. And as you can see, this could be a frustrating ordeal early on in the game before you have any ladders to go up and down. I also built the ship tall. There is a way to build it out in a way that's not so tall. And that's something that I can show you how to do at a later time. I do like this design, though, because it is something that gives me an opportunity to have a lot more opportunity to land in different places. And Bob is deciding right now that he's done here. He is done. And he's setting staging up for his rocket, and he's going to make things go in all different directions. Oh, that's not exactly what our intentions are, Bob. We wanted those things to survive. Well, we'll have to check back a little bit later and see if any of those survived. If we get one, at least we'll have some kind of a probe on the moon just in case we need to send data back. The whole idea here, and something that I will admit that, it's not Bob. Bob's controlled by me. I totally forgot that I had Valentina coming to get Bob. And the reason is for this. I realized when I landed that there was no probe unit on here. So there's no SAS. So I have to play with Time Warp to make Time Warp my SAS, which is totally cheating, folks, but it definitely works. I had created that whole second mission as a mission to leave this on the moon and come and pick Bob up and practice landing in the same area. Holy cow, did I mess this one up. SAS is very important, and when you send somebody that's not a pilot, you really want to make sure that you have a probe unit on board that has SAS. It's very important, and that's something that I can't give enough advice, or I can't stress it enough. So already we're going off into like 16 different directions because Bob really cannot fly a spaceship. Bob is a scientist. He works experiments. He collects data. He walks on the moon and he puts all the information into the science processing plants, right? The science junior and senior and all those other things. So this is something that I really botched, and a whole mission that was going to save this ship and leave it on the moon, possibly as a future base, totally just went to pot. So sorry about that, folks. Sometimes I'm just playing to play, and sometimes I'm playing for fun. So we're sending Bob home now. He will get back and he will live through this, and he'll have to answer to the Kerbal Space Agency administrator and explain why he botched this one. So hopefully Deke Kerman is a little bit more lenient on him than he was one of the other Kerbans who you will never meet. So this mission is long over at this point. It's just pointing prograde, which we did right there, waiting for our opportunity to fire our engine and just trying to keep the engine centered, keep the nav ball centered. And to see how hard this was, think about Apollo 13, where they had to fire it with no real assistance because all the computers were down in that ship. And they had to do it from a unbalanced spacecraft with an engine on the LEM that wasn't meant to do that. And one of the issues that they had was trying to keep it centered. And I remember them putting a piece of gum on the window of the LEM and just trying to keep a star centered when they were doing that. So this is Bob, obviously no SAS left. And as soon as we get rid of the service module, the heat shield is actually going to balance us in the atmosphere and take us home. So that won't be a bad thing. And hopefully the parachutes don't burn off like it seems is happening right now. Or those might be the actual goo containers, which we definitely want to bring with us. Although we should be pulling this one off, no problem. There we go, we're spinning. I think that we are going to be fine. So that leaves us on our Minmus mission. Let's go take a look and see what's happening in our next episode. People, thank you so much for watching my videos on Kerbal Space Program. This is my guilty pleasure, and I have a few of them. And I'll be back with more videos later this week. And until then, you all be safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.